Do you want to become a Pilates instructor? Chances are, if you're coming to this video, you want to become a Pilates instructor, but you have zero idea where to start. That is where I hop in. Hi, my name's Margaret. If we've not met before, I'm 26. I'm a certified Pilates instructor. I've been teaching Pilates for 3 going on 4 years. I first started teaching reformer Pilates in March of 2019, and in January of 2021, I started to also teach mat Pilates virtually. Before we start, I want you to grab a paper and pen because I'm going to give you a couple of things to think about, and there will probably be some opportunities that you feel like you want to write something down. Pause the video for a second, grab a pen and paper, title it however you want, date it, I don't know your life. First things first, why do you want to go through a Pilates teacher training and why do you want to become a Pilates instructor? Do you just want to go through a Pilates teacher training to deepen your own practice of Pilates, or do you want to go through a teacher training with the intent of actually teaching Pilates and having this become your career? I went through my first teacher training with the intent to teach part-time. At the time I was working a full-time corporate job and I wanted to teach on weekends and evenings. I wanted to become a Pilates instructor because I'm very passionate about health. I'm very passionate about fitness and wellness. My degree in college was public health, and the emphasis on my public health degree was health education and health promotion. I always kind of knew that I wanted to be in some kind of job where I was helping people learn to live their lives better and helping people to improve in any way that I could. Second thing I would recommend you do, if you're not already doing this, start to do Pilates consistently. Most programs will have a prerequisite for you to have taken a certain amount of hours of Pilates classes before you're even eligible to do a teacher training program. I would recommend that, you've been doing Pilates about 6 months to a year before you try and jump into a teacher training program. For me, I was doing Pilates consistently for about 8 months before I went through a teacher training. I felt pretty comfortable with the exercises. I had my bachelor's degree in public health. I had my personal training certification before I even started doing Pilates. I had been consistently exercising for a long time. I had just a really good general baseline knowledge of the body. The more time you can give yourself to consistently practice and to feel the exercises in your own body, the better. Now, if you have a studio that you're consistently going to, start talking to the instructors. Is the studio that you're practicing at, is that a studio that you'd want to teach at? If the answer is yes, ask the instructors what training program they went through. Ask who they trained with. Some studios have their own studio-specific teacher training because they have their own format of teaching classes. The first teacher training that I went through was at Reform Pilates in Phoenix. They have their own style of teaching, so their teacher training is specific to their classes and their studios. Talk to the studio managers, see what the deal is. Maybe they hold their own teacher trainings. That gives you kind of an automatic in to an easy option to a teacher training to do with instructors that with people that it's going to be a good environment, and you're going to be taught in a teaching style that resonates with you. If you're kind of left to your own devices to find a teacher training, or you've gotten a little bit of input from other people on what teacher trainings they did, think about how a Pilates teacher training program is going to fit into your life. Is your end goal becoming a mat Pilates teacher? Do you want to teach a mix of mat and reformer? Because there are a couple ways that you can do a teacher training program. You can just do mat modules, you can do mat and reformer together, or you can do a full comprehensive program. I kind of did things a little bit backwards. For me, I went through a studio-specific training that taught me one style of teaching for one style of class, and I taught reformer Pilates that way for 2.5 years. And then I went through my full 500-hour comprehensive training. And I did it that way for a lot of different reasons, mostly because I was moving and I knew that if I wanted to get a Pilates teaching job somewhere else, I needed to have this comprehensive program knowledge. What I would recommend when you're looking at teacher training programs, you want to find programs that are accredited through PMA, which is the Pilates Method Alliance, and that will allow you to sit for the NCPT exam, Nationally Certified Pilates Teacher exam. This is my opinion. I don't think that it is necessary to sit for the exam unless the studio that you're going to be teaching at requires it. For me specifically and what I do, it's not necessary for me to sit for the exam to show that I'm competent as a teacher. Now, I'm just gonna give you a short little list. It's not an all-inclusive list. There are a lot of other teacher training programs, but I'm gonna rattle off a couple that are big names that you'll see a lot and that you can research and see if there's a training program offered in your area. Those programs are, and not limited to, Balanced Body, Dote Pilates, Polestar, Peak Pilates, Bossy, Breathe Education. The program that I went through is called The Lab. All are accredited through PMA, and if you complete them, they will allow you to sit for the exam. just so that you know. If you need an online option, I know Breathe Education does, I think their program is completely online. So that's an option for those of you that maybe don't have a teacher training program near you. I did my program with Jackie and Ariel at the workshop in Scottsdale, Arizona. I went through that program because of them, because I love them, I respect them. I think that they are really great teachers. And also because they understood like my personal journey with Pilates, and they understood kind of where I was coming from with my career. That is how I decided to go with that program. Location-wise made sense. It made sense in my budget. And it was with people that I have a similar teaching style to, and that understood where I was coming from, and that I felt like would be a really good fit for almost like a mentorship. Cost is also a huge consideration when it comes to choosing a teacher training program. Programs can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. It depends on the training program that you went through. The first teacher training I went through at Reformed, I paid, I think all in all, $2,000 to go through that program. My 500-hour program was $5,000. So I've spent too much money on Pilates teacher training. When you're looking at teacher training programs, you're gonna see the words classical and contemporary thrown around a lot. If you go through a classical Pilates teacher training, there's a lot of focus on the classical repertoire and doing things how it was classically intended to do, how Joseph Pilates intended things. In a contemporary program, you will learn those things, you'll learn the classical repertoire, but you'll also learn how to build off of those things. I teach more contemporary. I think I teach in a much more classical way than most Pilates instructors on the internet, but I would say I definitely teach contemporary, and I don't really have a preference. I think they both have their place. I think it's fun to do the classical exercises. You know, do I put them all in my everyday routines? No. Other things that I think are really important to look for in a teacher training program, is there an emphasis on teaching in your program, or is it just about learning the exercises? If you want to become a Pilates instructor, it is very important that you practice teaching and that there are modules in your training program that help you learn how to teach. It's very important, believe it or not. For my 500-hour comprehensive training, I had to complete 100 hours of practice teaching. When you decide on a training program, I would recommend you start practice teaching as soon as you can, because the more practice teaching that you can get in, maybe you do more than 100 hours, the better you will ultimately be as a Pilates instructor. Courses or continuing education on Pilates or anything related to Pilates you'd recommend? Yeah, so for me, I would say my 500-hour training was kind of a continuing ed for me personally, because I had already gone through a former Pilates teacher training. Moving forward, like things that I specifically want to do in terms of continuing ed, I want to become a master instructor, go through that kind of certification process, and maybe even get like a diploma of Pilates through Breathe Education. People that I recommend you follow if you want to learn more about Pilates, or you're an instructor and you want to continue learning, but maybe you don't want to sit down and do a full like continuing ed course. Chloe Bunter Pilates, she hosts virtual reformer mat, chair, and probably more classes that are meant for instructors. She's an awesome resource. I also love following Rad Pilates. She is awesome. I learn a lot from her as well. How do you create a reformer or mat class? This person is currently doing their full comprehensive program. Hi, Julie. I create classes in a couple of different ways. When you are like putting together a class, you always want to make sure that you're moving the body in extension, flexion, rotation. If you cover all of those things, all of your classes are going to feel really well-rounded. If you have more questions on how to structure a class, I can do a full video on that and kind of go through my process. I think that might be a little bit more helpful. Now, after you've gone through your training program, you've completed all of the hours. If you did your training program at your local studio, sometimes they'll hire you. You can get a job that way. If you did a training program not at a local studio, more often than not, when you find a studio that you want to teach at, you'll have to audition for them. After you complete a teacher training program, whether it's MAT or it's a full comprehensive program, you can also start to teach virtually. I can do a whole video on that, how to teach virtually and how to kind of start your own Pilates business. It's a little bit too much for this video, so if you want to see that, please let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, please let me know down in the comments. Remember, you guys are awesome. You can do anything you put your mind to, and I will see you in our next video.